in this infinitely deep devotional prayer of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur that we have recited together. He is remembering, appreciating, glorifying Lord Chaitanya, especially in his relationships with his various devotees. First, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is giving everyone an invitation. If you want to be free from the influences of this age of Kali, Kaleroto sanide rajan asti heka mahan guna. The Srimad Bhagavatam declares Kali Yuga to be an ocean of faults. Not just a little puddle type of ocean that we see in this earth planet, but a really vast ocean. Because somehow or other, whether it's the Pacific Ocean or the Atlantic Ocean or the Indian Ocean or the Arctic Ocean or the Arabian Sea, you can cross it. You can cross it by ship, or nowadays you can cross it by airplanes. From Calcutta to New York City, by cargo ship, it took Srila Prabhupada 38 days. Now so many devotees who are followers of Srila Prabhupada. You can fly from Calcutta to New York. How much? Less than, probably about 18 hours. 18 hours and 38 days. Very big difference. And in the 18 hours, you're in an airplane and it's air conditioned. They're giving you food if you want food, otherwise you bring your own. Srila Prabhupada describes when he was on Jaladuta while crossing the Arabian Sea, and there was terrible storms, giant waves, wind, rains. And on all four sides, all you see is ocean. He said he felt like he was riding in a little matchbox. That's a box about this big, in this vast ocean. So somehow or other, we have means of crossing oceans. But Kalerdosa Niderajan Asti Hekamahan Guna. The ocean of Kali is not like these little oceans. The illusions of this age of Kali are so strong. We are bound by the habitual addiction to sense gratification. We're so much addicted to the concepts of I and mine. I am this body, and whatever is connected to this body is mine. Janasya moho yamaham mameti. And due to that misconception, we're always in anxiety. And if we're not in anxiety, soon we will be. It's just the nature. Not only is everything temporary, but there's just so many reasons to fear. This ocean is so deep and so wide that there's no machine, there's no scientific invention, there's nothing within human potential to cross this ocean. In previous ages, we lived long lives, we were quite peaceful, and we had great capacity to follow spiritual principles. In Kali Yuga, we have very small intelligence, small memory, very tiny little lifespan. And we're constantly being dragged from one distraction to another. And a primary trait in Kali Yuga is envy. Why do people become envious? If we're really nice, then when we see somebody else doing really good, we're happy for them. And if we see somebody doing better than us, we're happy that they're getting blessed so much. And we just want to assist them so that they could do better. That's just basic goodness. But in Kali Yuga, because the heart is dissatisfied, no matter how much money, no matter how much wealth, prestige, power, position, we still have this strong tendency to be envious. Because the heart is just empty of any real satisfaction. The satisfaction that the heart is seeking is ras, spiritual relationship with Krishna. To feel Krishna's love, to love Krishna. Lord Chaitanya taught the quality of one who loves Krishna is such a person sees Krishna everywhere. Such a person sees everything as Krishna's property. This whole world is Krishna's world. And that means everything is meant to be utilized in the service of Krishna. That is the true meaning of Krishna consciousness. That everything, the whole creation, and everything within it and everyone within it, it's all Krishna's. And it's all meant for the pleasure of Krishna. To live in that spirit is seva. Why is Kali Yuga such a terrible place? For one simple reason. Because those simple principles of Dharma are forgotten. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur told Srila Prabhupada in his first meeting at Ultadunga Junction Road in Calcutta on that rooftop that in this world there appears to be so many problems. In those days, India, there was forced artificial droughts that according to some records, millions and millions of people died of starvation. Not because there was no food, but because powerful people were manipulating and exploiting. Soon after, just before there was World War I, soon after there was World War II. So many, tens, 20s, millions of people were killed. Whole countries were devastated. Incredible what's happening in this world. And that's before they had any really developed. They only had 2 nuclear bombs in those days. Now there's hundreds. And each one is just one push of a button away from causing mass destruction. Kamala dala jala jivana talamala. 500 years ago, before there were nuclear bombs like this, Govinda Das was saying, everything in this world, all your attachments, your wife, your children, your body, your wealth, your position, everything. It's like a drop of water on a lotus leaf. A lotus leaf is so special that as soon as you put water on it, it turns into a little ball and flies off. Practically flies. It goes. If you try to hold it, you have to really be balancing. If you just little inattention, it's gone. And the amazing thing about a lotus leaf is after the water is gone, there's no trace that it's ever been there. It's very beautiful to see and very enlightening when we think that everything we have in this world is exactly like that little drop of water on a lotus leaf. And if you put 10 drops of water on a lotus leaf, even 100 drops, I've done it. I've done so many experimentations. It all merges into one drop and it's all gone. That's called death. Whatever we have at the moment of death, it's all gone at one time. The only thing that remains is our karma. Where we have to, in our next life, we have to come back and receive the reactions of our karma. If we've done good things, then we get nice experiences in our next life. But Kali Yuga is a time when people don't even know what's good or bad anymore. Religion is taken to be irreligion, irreligion is taken to be religion. People hate in the name of God. People are arrogant in the name of their religion. I'm better, I'm best, I have rights. Every great religion teaches that when you love God, you cannot hate anyone. It's like when you put water on the root of a tree, it's not that it manifests as fire towards certain leaves or branches. It's water. When we love God, we love. And the basic foundation of every true religion is humility. Not to be arrogant. If we're given something very valuable, we're humbled that we are trustees of something very sacred, and we protect it, and we share it with each other and with the world. That is bhakti. But Kali Yuga, everything's upside down. So many complications, so many implications. This ocean of Kali, no one can cross it. You could memorize every sloka of the Vedas. You could memorize all the literatures in the libraries. You can win Nobel Prizes for your inventions. You could perfect every yoga asana that's ever been performed. But you can't cross the ocean of Kali. Only by taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. Bhajahud Hari Pada Nitire. When we take shelter of Hari, by Hari's grace, the ocean of material existence, the ocean of Kali Yuga, becomes reduced to the quantity of water in the hoofprint of a calf. When there's a little hoofprint of a calf, if you come to Govardhan Eco Village or you go to the Goshala here at Mayapur, so many hoofprints of calves. We just walk over, we hardly notice them. Lord Hari descends in this age of Kali in his holy names. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Bhagavan Sri Krishna, who has appeared in this age to give us the wealth, the prime benediction of all humanity. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtana. He benedicts us with the holy names of Lord Hari. And by his example, he teaches us how to chant. Sri Sachinandan, this very beautiful, loving, wonderful son of Sachi Devi, has come to dispel all fear. Fear is only existing within darkness. But in light, when we see everything as it is, there's no fear. When we forget the eternal nature of the spirit soul, when we forget our relationship with Krishna, then we're vulnerable to so many disturbances. And there's so many reasons to be fearful. If you look at the world today, all the diseases, at a medical conference, I was told, the people who are living in the world today, I believe, half of men will get some sort of cancer, and 1/3 of women will get some sort of cancer in their lifetime. That's in the world. What to speak of heart diseases and all these little mosquitoes that have all these dengue fevers and malarias, and there's heart problems, and one of the biggest problems is psychiatric problems, depression and mental illness. So many difficulties. So many crashes on the road. Any moment, earthquakes. Cyclones, hurricanes. Nasty people. So many things to be afraid of. What to speak of militaries under the control of mad people in the age of Kali. So many times. Why aren't we always afraid? It's only because we're just not conscious of what's all around us. We're not aware of the reality that we could be stricken with suffering, pain, or death at any second. So the more we actually study what's happening in the world, the more there's a reason to be afraid. But if we see the world from the perspective of the light of truth, that Krishna is behind the scenes in everything, everywhere in this world, just waiting to embrace us, to cast his loving glance and smile upon us and give us the highest liberation. Krishna's in our heart waiting for us. He's in the heart of every living being waiting for us. He's in between every atomic particle waiting for us. Jeev Jago, Jeev Jago. Lord Chaitanya is asking us to wake up. Vajahuremana Srinandanandana Abhaya Charanada Vindare. Then we're above fear. Because param dristva nivartate, because the happiness of connecting to our eternal soul and to Krishna's all attractive, loving, sweet features are so happy that they make all the miseries of material existence put together insignificant. But when great devotees, they see other people and forgetful of Krishna, it pains their heart because they have this principle of karuna or compassion. That's the true quality of one who has a spiritual connection. They're karuna. They're deeply compassionate because they're connected to Karuna Sindhu, the ocean of compassion. That is Krishna. Bhaktivinoda Thakur is singing like this. The absolute truth has descended into this world as Sri Sachinandan. In this age of Kali, the time of the worst sufferings and the worst diseases, the worst of everything. And he's coming to give the best. What was so difficult to achieve, hundreds and thousands of years of tapasya and meditation in Satya Yuga, in this little lifespan of ours in Kali, if we just chant the holy name sincerely and live in this principle of devotional service, we can attain that same perfection and even more. Not just liberation. The supreme liberation, entering Krishna's loving pastimes. Namo Mahabharanyaya. Lord Chaitanya is the supremely most magnanimous of avatars. In fact, in the Srimad Bhagavatam it tells that the greatest of the sages who are the most compassionate, they worship Kali Yuga better than all other times. Because as Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the Supreme Lord, is most merciful in this age of Kali. And in his Kali Kale Namarupe Krishna avatar, in his incarnation as his holy names, he's giving the means. Anandam Bodhivardhanam, to fulfill the true desire of the heart. And through the song, Bhaktivinoda Thakur is glorifying the relationship that Lord Chaitanya has with each devotee. And each one is so different. Gadadhar Pandit's a simple brahmachari. King Prataparuja is a king. Ramananda Rai is a governor and a scholar. Haridas Thakur just lives in caves chanting all day and night. Each one of these devotees is so unique, so different from one another, but yet they are all united like with one heart. Because despite unity and diversity, with all their incredible diversity, they're all the servant of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. This is bhakti. In bhakti, the limitless, wonderful, eternal relationships that the Lord has with his devotees is the very essence of spiritual life. The aspiration to merge into a limitless experience of peace with no conception of a loving relationship. It has no appeal at all. Devotees do not want to become one with God by losing their own identity. Devotees want to be one with God through love. We have an eternal spiritual identity as eternal servants of Krishna. And that service is the means by which we express our limitless love for Krishna and feeling Krishna's limitless love for us. In that state, there can be no envy. There can be no anxiety. The only anxiety is spiritual anxiety, how to make Krishna happier, how to help others to be happy with Krishna. In a few minutes, we're going to be having a wonderful presentation on the temple of the Vedic Planetarium. This wonderful temple that's there. We have been seeing it wherever we go in Sri Mayapur, there it is. Srila Prabhupada spoke so many times about it. It was a great desire in his heart. But then he said, for ourselves, we're happy to be sitting under a tree and chanting Hare Krishna. But that's not the way devotees are. We're not just thinking of ourselves. We're thinking of the rest of the world. We're trying to connect to this mood of Lord Chaitanya's compassion, which Srila Prabhupada personified. And it's difficult building such a nice temple like this, as you will see when Janani Prabhu and Braj-Vilas Prabhu come up here. But actually, it's an opportunity for each and every one of us to participate. In previous times, there were kings, just one person would do everything. But in Lord Chaitanya's mission, everyone, whether we're little spiders who are kicking a little grain of sand, which is maybe 100 rupees, or whether we're Hanumans and we're giving crores of rupees in the form of mountains. The difference between the spider and Hanuman was really nothing in the eyes of Ram, because they were both doing the best they could to please the Lord. Continuing from where we left off yesterday, does anyone remember where we left off yesterday? Lord Chaitanya was having kirtan with devotees. He had begun the Sankirtan movement here in Sri Mayapur Dham. And he established this principle because he was taking the role of a devotee to teach us not only by his words, but by his behavior, by his character. We cannot approach the holy names directly. Because we cannot approach Krishna directly. When pujaris are doing puja, first they beg the permission of their guru and the guru parampara, then they offer it to Krishna. And if we're sincere and we're doing properly, then Krishna accepts it. Mad bhakta pujabhyadika. Krishna is most pleased when we please his servants. This was Lord Chaitanya's teaching. Gopi bharatu pada kamala yoradas das das anudas. To be servant of the servant of the servant of the Lord. And he showed it. Here he was in such an exalted position. He was from the highest Brahmin ancestral family. He was the most beautiful person in the universe. He was the most learned person in the universe. He had achieved what no other scholar had ever done in history, as far as his scholarship, his defeating the Mahapandits from all directions. But when he wanted to start the Sankirtan movement, he began by picking up a basket of flowers. If a devotee was picking flowers, Lord Chaitanya would help him pick the flowers. He would just see them and run up to them, and then he would take the basket and carry the basket for him, carry the devotee's clothes. He was constantly seeking the opportunity to serve the devotees. One time, Lord Chaitanya met with his dear friend Gadadhar. Gadadhar was carrying some spices. And Lord Chaitanya, just by seeing Gadadhar and seeing his seva, his service to Krishna, he was so moved. We heard yesterday how moved he was when he was seeing the service of Advaita to Krishna. This is the nature of a devotee. Our heart feels so much joy when we see others serving Krishna. So when he saw Gadadhar carrying some spices to be offered to Krishna, he went into such an ecstatic state of love and separation. He began to cry out, "Where is Krishna? Where is Krishna?" Tears like torrents of rain, like rivers, were pouring from his eyes. He was in a pathetic voice crying out, "Where is Krishna? Where is Krishna? Gadadhar, where is Krishna?" There's a beautiful verse that lolium, this intense eagerness to hear about Krishna, intense eagerness to be with Krishna. And this separation intensifies our eagerness. That is the means by which we get true bhakti. As he was crying, "Where is Krishna, Gadadhar?" Gadadhar Pandit said, "Krishna is in your heart." Lord Chaitanya was in such a state of eagerness to reconnect with Krishna. He took his fingers and began to rip open his chest with the intention of ripping open his heart so he could find Krishna. If Krishna's in my heart, I want to be with him. I want to see him. And when he started ripping open his chest, We know it's a similar story with Hanuman. Hanuman was crying like that, "Where is Ram? Where is Sita? Where is Ram? Where is Sita?" And someone said, "He's in your heart, Hanuman." And Hanuman actually, with his monkey-like claws, he ripped open his chest and he ripped open his heart. Now, if you or me do that, we'd be dead. But Hanuman, he found life. His heart was ripped totally open. And he looked in, and there he saw Sitaram smiling at him. And he thought, "Oh, yes, yes, very nice." And then he closed his heart and closed his He was happy. So Lord Chaitanya, he began to rip open, "Krishna's in my heart." And Gadadhar ran over and held Lord Chaitanya's hands. And he said, "Be patient. Krishna will come. Please be patient. Krishna will come." Because Gadadhar was speaking it with such a genuine concern for Lord Chaitanya and with such total faith, Lord Chaitanya was pacified. Yes. Gadadhar says Krishna will come, so Krishna will come. Sachi Devi saw this, Lord Chaitanya's mother, and she thought Gadadhar is the most intelligent person because myself and Vishnu Priya and all the other relatives and devotees, no one knows what to do when Lord Chaitanya goes into these intense ecstasies of separation. But Gadadhar knows just what to do. Sachimata, in her own motherly way, when she makes a request, it's like the ultimate order for a devotee. She requested Gadadhar that please always stay with my son Nimai because you are so intelligent, you know how to control him and protect him. From then, Gadadhar was practically a constant association of Lord Chaitanya. Now at this stage in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, he's just come back from Gaya and he's exhibiting states of love of God that the world has never seen. It's the love of Sri Radha for Krishna. It's her love from Goloka Vrindavan. That's the love. Never to be seen in this world. At his house, the devotees would gather at the Yoga Pit to chant the holy names. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was inducing everyone to be chanting the holy names throughout the day. Sometimes throughout the night they would chant the holy names together. They would dance. It was accessing the ecstatic love of the spiritual world, sharing the ecstatic love of the spiritual world and expressing it in every aspect of their being. That's Prem Sankirtan. You see, Lord Chaitanya didn't just come to teach kirtan. Because in every Kali Yuga, it's the recommended process kirtan. And so many people do kirtan. Lord Chaitanya's kirtan is unique. It's Prem Sankirtan. It's the kirtan of the highest, purest, ecstatic love. Savai pung sang paro dharamo yato bhaktir hokshajiyo haitakiya pratihatada yatma suprasidati. There are many types of dharma. And kirtan from different styles coming from different lineages may be approaching various levels of Dharma. But the Srimad Bhagavatam teaches the supreme Dharma is only one. It's the essence, the true essence of every great religion. To awaken our ecstatic love for the Supreme Being. That love must be unconditional. Unconditional by any selfishness, by any arrogance, by anything except for the pleasure of the Supreme. And uninterrupted by any situation that may come before us. Unconditional love. That's the true aspiration that Lord Chaitanya taught through kirtan. And the method of kirtan, the character that we're aspiring to develop in our lifestyles, is what Lord Chaitanya taught. It's all to be the servant of the servant of the servant for the purpose of unconditional loving devotion. Prem Sankirtan. In Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's line of kirtan, it connects us to the supreme abode, Goloka, through him. In his lineage of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, kirtan is, if we do it according to his direction, directly through parampara, connecting to Sri Radha's love. Infusing us with her compassion. Parama karuna pahunduijana. Supremely compassionate. So in this way, he was enjoying kirtan just with the devotees at his house. And Srivas for many years was having kirtan at his house. And now Nimai was part of those kirtans. And that just gave a whole nother dimension of influence to the kirtans. The envious people of Navadvip, they hated Srivas and his three brothers, Srivas, Sripati, Sriram, Srinidhi. They were spreading such nasty rumors about Srivas. They're useless people. Srivas and his brothers, how they're ruining other people's lives. They're doing this chanting. And they say they're practicing bhakti. But how much money are they earning? How much prestige and power are they getting? How are they enjoying life like we're enjoying life? They're misleading people away from all the really important things of life. They're brainwashing. They didn't use those words, but same thing. And besides that, we are under a Muslim kingdom with Mughal rule. And it's outlawed for Hindus to do any public exhibition of their religion. And Srivas and his brothers, they're screaming out these names. Why can't they just meditate silently on these names? Why do they have to scream? They're screaming so loud, they're going to wake up Vishnu in the causal ocean. He's going to destroy everyone. And the king, when he hears about this, he's already heard about it. He is going to exploit and plunder everything that everyone in Navadvip has just to punish us because of Srivas. We know what's going to happen. The soldiers are going to come. The king is going to send his order. And Srivas is going to hide and run. And we're going to get beaten. We're going to be killed. All of our property is going to be taken away. So we should tie up Srivas and bring him to the king and let him be punished. And we should take his house and break it to pieces and throw it in the river Ganges and let it float away forever. Then the rumor that these envious people were spreading, the king has already sent boatloads of his soldiers, and he's coming with them just to punish Srivas, the devotees. And if we don't make sure that they're found as the guilty culprits, we're all going to be plundered. So Srivas was listening to this. He was worried about the devotees. Because even if you're fearless, still you're concerned about others. He was thinking, they're going to come and torture all the devotees. So he was worried. He was in his temple room one day, worshiping Lord Narsinghadev to protect all the devotees. Because he heard the king and the soldiers were already on the boat, on their way. Meanwhile, Lord Chaitanya, he was blissfully walking down the river Ganges banks, and he saw the beauty of Mother Ganga, swirling waves, flowing with her nectarine waters. He was so pleased. Then he saw a herd of cows on the bank of the Ganga. And these cows were so happy. They were playing with each other. With their noses, they were pushing each other, and they were just happily talking to each other, and they were jumping and running. Some of them, their tails were raised as they were jumping around with each other, and some were kind of pushing each other with their horns. Lord Chaitanya seeing the cows blissfully on the bank of the Ganga. He remembered that he's Krishna. He's a Gopa. He's the son of Nanda Maharaj, taking care of cows eternally in the spiritual world. And Lord Chaitanya cried out, I am he. And then he ran to the house of Srivas and knocked on the door. But Srivas was in the temple room doing his puja to Narsinghadev, intensely praying and meditating for the protection of the devotees, chanting God's names. And Lord Chaitanya said, Srivas, Srivas, come! He who you are worshiping is here. So Srivas came out, and he looked, and there was Lord Chaitanya, manifesting a four-arm form of Lord Vishnu. He was holding a conch shell, a disc, a club, and a lotus flower. He was the personification of eternal beauty. When Srivas saw this, he was so overwhelmed with happiness. Lord Chaitanya said, Srivas, offer me prayers. Srivas said, what can I say? He didn't know that Lord Chaitanya was God. He thought he was a pandit. He was always giving blessings to Lord Chaitanya. And he was always praying for Lord Chaitanya, please become a devotee. And then when he became a devotee, He manifested, he was thinking there's no devotee like him, but now he's seeing with his own eyes the truth that Sri Chaitanya is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the absolute truth. He's descended into this age out of his causeless mercy for all beings. Srivas, in his prayers, he quoted Lord Brahma from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Because Brahma did not recognize Krishna. We told the story yesterday. And then he actually saw Krishna with 4 arms. So many 4 arms. And then he realized that Krishna is the Supreme Personality. Krishna's God. Srivas said, for so many years I thought you were a pundit. For so many years I was praying for you. For so many years I was giving you blessings. And when you would take my flowers to bring them to my house, or you would take my cloth, I let you do it. But you're Ram. You're Narasimhadev. You're Vamanadev. You're Narasimhadev. You're Krishna, the Avatari, the source of all incarnations of the Lord. Lord Chaitanya was so pleased with Srivasa's prayers. He just prayed to be the servant of the servant and always be chanting the Lord's names for the Lord's pleasure. This was Lord Chaitanya's principle. We don't chant Krishna's names for our own liberation. We chant Krishna's names for Krishna's pleasure. Because Krishna's pleased when we approach him with love. Why is he pleased when we approach him with love? Because then we open our hearts to receive his love. And he knows that's the only true food for the soul that gives us happiness. Lord Chaitanya told Srivas, don't be afraid. I know you're doing puja because these boats with the king and his soldiers are on their way. But I am the cause of all causes. I'm the supreme controller of all controllers. If that king actually comes with his soldiers on those boats, then I will be the first one to get on the boat with him. And let us see what he will do to me. He will come down and give me his throne. And if he doesn't, then I'll bring him to his throne in his castle. And I'll tell him, bring all these qazis and mullahs who are complaining against us, who are complaining against the Sankirtan of the holy names, and who have incited you to come and punish my devotees. Bring them all here. And then bring your elephants, your horses, your dogs, your cats, your birds, all the animals of the kingdom, and tell all of these religious representatives that you follow, tell them to induce these animals to chant God's names and cry. And they'll try, but not a single bird or elephant is going to cry for them. And then he said, I will tell all these animals, chant Krishna's names and cry. The elephants, they will weep in ecstasy. The birds, the insects will, they'll all be chanting in their own languages in ecstatic love. The dogs, ruff, 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 ruff. The elephants and the horses and the dogs and the cats and the insects and the birds, they will be rolling in the ground in ecstatic love, weeping. And Srivas, if you don't believe me, then you watch. At that moment, Srivas's niece, she was 4 years old. Her name was Narayani. Lord Chaitanya looked at her, and very sweetly, he said, Narayani, chant Krishna's name and cry. To everyone's astonishment, this sweet little girl, Narayani, who really didn't know much about anything, she called Krishna, 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 Krishna. Tears poured from her eyes. Her limbs were trembling. Her hairs were standing on end. Krishna, Krishna, Krishna. She attained the ultimate perfection of life, of Krishna Prem at that moment. She didn't know any scriptures. She had not done any tapasya, any austerities. She never did anything religious, really. She's just a 4-year-old little girl. But by Lord Chaitanya's mercy, he induced her. He inspired her to chant Krishna's names with love. Then Lord Chaitanya told Srivas, bring all your family members, bring all your household assistants, servants, maidservants, bring them all here. And he gave them all darshan of his four-arm form. He placed his lotus feet on all of their heads and gave them premadan, the treasure of ecstatic love. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur tells a very important message of this story. What were the qualifications of little Narayani? What were the qualifications of these people who were the gardeners of his house, or people who would wash things and build things? Their qualification was that they were connected to Srivas. Anyone who is connected to a devotee who loves the Lord gives his special mercy. He gave the highest spiritual perfection of yoga simply because they were dear to Srivas. And he was dear to them. One day, Lord Chaitanya, he was walking. He heard a Brahmin chanting from the Vishnu Sahasranam, chanting different names of the Lord. He heard the name Varaha. Lord Chaitanya entered into the mood of Varaha. He ran to the house of Murari Gupta, which is just not far from here. Is that part of your yatra this year, to go to Murari Gupta's house? Haribol. Doesn't. I guess that answers the question on a higher level. Well, it's only a few minutes from here. So Lord Chaitanya went to Murari Gupta's house, and Murari Gupta was doing puja on the altar, and Lord Chaitanya came before the altar and he cried out, Sukar, Sukar, which means boar, the boar incarnation of the Lord. And Murari Gupta looked over. Lord Chaitanya had manifested the form of Varahadev. So beautiful. Truly incredible. Srila Prabhupada explains that usually humans don't consider pigs or wild pigs, which are boars, to be beautiful. I don't know, maybe you do. But definitely to a male hog, there is nothing so irresistibly beautiful than a female hog. Everything's relative. They look at even the most so-called attractive of Bollywood actresses. What will a hog do? Just see her and think, where's some stool to eat? But if he sees a female hog, he doesn't think about stool, he thinks about it. That's the nature of the relative attractions. But generally in human society, it's not. But when Krishna, when Lord Narayan takes the form of a boar, he's limitlessly beautiful, not only for the boars and the pigs, but to the insects and to the trees and to every type of humanity. What is beauty? Krishna's beauty is absolute in whatever form he takes. He can become a turtle. He can become a lion. He can become a boar. He can become a fish. And he's all attractive, supremely beautiful, possessing all opulences. So Varahadev appeared before Murari Gupta, and on his altar there was a little vessel with a spout on it that Murari Gupta used for water for his puja. And Lord Chaitanya, in his Varaha form, picked up that vessel of water with his tusks and held it, just like Varahadev held the earth planet. And he said, Murari, I am Varahadev. Murari, he knew Nimai since Nimai's birth. And now he's revealing his true form to him. And then in the form of Varahadev, he spoke transcendental knowledge to Murari Gupta. He said, my form, in whatever form I may take, it is transcendental. My body is Satchit Ananda Vigraha, eternal, full of knowledge and full of bliss. But there are people who take knowledge of the Vedas to say that my form is an illusion, to claim that my form is a product of the three modes of material nature. By speaking these things, they are attempting to break my limbs with the stick of their philosophical misconceptions. He said, but in truth, my form, my personality, my abode are eternal. They're the ultimate source of everything that exists. The Brahmajyoti is the halo that's emanating, the light coming from my eternal transcendental form. Bhaktya mama bijanati. And this form can only be understood through devotion. My love can only be understood through devotion. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was one by one revealing the inner treasures of his heart through his true identity to each and every one of his devotees. He wanted to explain to the devotees how to perform kirtan in the proper spirit. He cited this particular verse, Brihad Nadadiya Purana. Harinama, Harinama, Harinama eva kevalam kalo nasteva, nasteva, nastir gatir anyata. That in this age of Kali, the chanting of the names of Hari, stressed 3 times, Harinam, 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 eva kali. Eva means certainly, without doubt. Nasteva, nasteva, certainly the only means by which this ecstatic love that is inherent within us can be awakened. And then Lord Chaitanya spoke a particular verse. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami tells how we should chant. This verse is not a detail. It's a foundational basis of Lord Chaitanya's path. Trinadapi sunichena taror api sahishnana amani namana dena kirtaniya sadahari. This is how Mahaprabhu established Sankirtan. He taught his devotees this verse. First, the importance of the holy name, how Krishna has descended in his holy name, and then the mood in which we live to chant properly. One should be more humble than a blade of grass. And he explains people step on grass, they throw things on the grass, and the grass just keeps getting up to serve us. So humble. More tolerant than a tree. A tree stands in the sun and gives us shade. If you cut a tree down, he'll give his body for us to make a house for ourselves. In the hot season, the tree doesn't get a drop of water, but produces mangoes to quench our thirst. The nature of a tree is giving. Real tolerance, real forgiveness is never ever losing the disposition of being a well-wisher. Srila Prabhupada, practically every letter that he wrote, he ended it, "Your ever well-wisher." That means whatever we do, even if we abandon him, even if we offend him, he's still our ever well-wisher. Because Krishna's in our heart, he's our ever well-wisher. Parents may punish their children to teach them a good lesson, but they're doing it as a well-wisher. So a devotee is forgiving and tolerant as a well-wisher. Eager to offer all respect to others and not expect any in return. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy names of the Lord constantly. Because Krishna is so pleased, Krishna will reveal himself in his names if we have such a disposition in the way we live. Then Lord Chaitanya said, I raise my arms in the air and emphatically declare, take this verse, put it on the string of the holy names of Krishna, and wear it over your heart always. And in this spirit, the devotees adopted that state of consciousness, and along with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, they would chant throughout the day and throughout the night. But Lord Chaitanya was feeling separation. From Lord Nityananda. And Lord Nityananda Prabhu, they had never physically met in this incarnation. He understood through his devotional intuition that it was the Lord was calling for him. About 12 years before Lord Gauranga appeared in this world, Nityananda Prabhu appeared in the village of Ekachakra. There's a famous temple of Moreshwar Shiva that his father would perform puja. His father's name was Hadai Pandit. He was a pure Brahmin, a great scholar, and a deeply realized devotee. He was an embodiment of all generous, compassionate, devotional qualities. His good wife was Padmavati. She was like the mother of the universe. She was an embodiment of motherly love for all living beings. On the 13th day of the waxing moon in the month of Magh, Lord Nityananda appeared as their little son. From his birth, he attracted the hearts of everyone in Ekachakra. People just wanted to look at him. They wanted to touch him. They wanted to see him smile. They wanted him happy. Who is Nityananda Prabhu? It is very important to understand his pastimes in truth, to understand the dignity and the greatness of who he is. In the spiritual world of Goloka, Krishna's first expansion is Balaram. Balaram possesses all opulences in full. Srila Prabhupada explains the difference between Krishna and Balaram, same one God. Is Krishna's complexion is like a monsoon cloud, and Balaram's complexion is white like a spring cloud. The embodiment of all beauty. But Balaram, he is the supreme personality of servitor Godhead. Krishna is the supreme enjoyer. Balaram wants no enjoyment for himself. He's simply facilitating Krishna's enjoyment. Balaram, he expands himself to be all the material and spiritual worlds by his energy. Krishna's abode, Krishna's clothes, Krishna's jewels are all expansions of Balaram. Krishna's bed, his seats. Balaram, what a servant he is. He's everywhere. He's all pervading as a servant to give pleasure to Krishna. And that pleasure is so that Krishna can have reciprocal pleasures with the devotees. Krishna's life is to give pleasure to the devotees, and the devotees' life is to give pleasure to Krishna. That is called prem, or love. And Balaram is facilitator in every way. He's Shankarshan, the sustainer of all spiritual worlds. He's Anantadev, whose 1,000 mouths are constantly glorifying the names and the pastimes of Krishna. He's Shesha, who's the sustainer of all material existence and all spiritual existence. Balaram expands himself to be Narayan in Vaikuntha. Balaram expands himself to be Karunodakshayi Vishnu, Mahavishnu, who's the super soul of all the universes in the entire cosmic manifestation. Then he becomes Garbhodakshayi Vishnu, the super soul of each universe. Then he becomes Kshirodakshayi Vishnu, the super soul within the heart of every living being. That is Balaram. Brajendra Nandana Jai, Sachi Shuta Hoilo Jai, Balarama Hoilo Nitai. Balaram has become Nityananda Prabhu. He's taking a human-like form with such humility. Later we'll see he's going house to house, door to door, bowing down to saintly people, to sinful people, to ordinary people, crying in compassion, begging, please make your life perfect with happiness. Chant the names of God. Chant the names of Gauranga. But here he is, a little baby. Bhakti Ratnakar, one Brahmin, explains, one day he was living in Ekachakra. He was in a very, very distressed state. And he came to Hadai Pandit's house, and there was little Nitai. He was so beautiful. He said, I picked him up and put him on my lap. His body was as soft as freshly churned butter. And as soon as I touched him and he looked at me, I became ecstatic. All my anxieties left me forever. That was Nitai. Hadai Pandit, he loved his little son so much. As Nitai grew a little older, he became very playful. Hadai Pandit, he couldn't give up his association of his son for a moment. And Padmavati, it describes that if she didn't see Nityananda for 1 second, it seemed like a yuga. It seemed like thousands of years for her. Now, because we don't have that kind of love, it sounds like some sort of poetic imagination. How could a second seem like thousands of years? But that's what it's like. That's the sweetness of that consciousness of pure love. And Hadai Pandit, it was more than a yuga, a moment without Lord Chaitanya, with Lord Nityananda. So Hadai Pandit would take Nityananda when he would go to the fields. He would take Nityananda with him. When he would go to the shopping place in the market, he would take Nityananda with him. When he would go to teach people different scriptures, he would take Nityananda with him. Wherever he went, he just loved Nityananda so much. But Nityananda Prabhu descended into this world for the most fallen, unfortunate people who have forgotten the real purpose of life. Nitai and his friends, when they played, every game they played was enacting the different pastimes of Krishna and Ramchandra and the various incarnations. He brought so much happiness to everyone. One day, a sannyasi came to Ekachakra. he visited the house of Hadai Pandit in Padmavati. Hadai Pandit was so honored to serve a great Swami. He invited him into his house, he washed his feet, gave him sitting place, gave him prasad, and all night long they discussed Krishna. When the sun rose the next morning, the sannyasi was about to leave. He turned to Hadai Pandit. Can I ask one favor from you? One thing in charity only. Hadai Pandit, he was so honored. He said, anything you ask, I will do for you. The sannyasi requested, please give me your eldest son to travel with me. Because I'm all alone and I'm traveling to so many holy places throughout the land of Bharatvarsha. I need an assistant. I promise you I will protect him and take care of him with the love of a father. And he will see all the holy places. It was like a thunderbolt on the heart of Hadai Pandit. He can't bear a moment without Nitai. He's asking. He's not asking for my son, he's asking for my life. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur tells that throughout Nitai's childhood, it was as if Nitai was the soul and Hadai Pandit was the body. That's how much Hadai Pandit was attached to his son. Spiritually, he was his very life. He wants to take away my life. He was thinking that great personalities were willing to give up their lives to serve great sannyasis. When Vishwamitra Muni came to Ayodhya and asked Dasarat Maharaj, give me your son. Ram was very young. This sannyasi is asking him to assist him to go to holy places. Vishwamitra Muni asked to kill the most powerful demons in creation. It was worse than death for Dasarat. But for the principle of Dharma, Dasarat agreed. And Hadai Pandit said, similarly, following in the footsteps of the great souls, I give away my life if I give Nityananda Prabhu, and my life is totally ruined if I do not. So he decided to follow Dasarat's footsteps. He went to Padmavati and asked, what should I do? She said, whatever you decide is what I wish for you to do. Hadai Pandit brought Nityananda Prabhu to this illustrious sannyasi and said, here is my son. Nityananda Prabhu seemed very happy. He was waiting for the opportunity to go because he knew his mission. And they left. As soon as they left, Hadai Pandit collapsed unconscious. When the word spread in Ekachakra that Nityananda is gone, all the people in Ekachakra, Nityananda Prabhu would play with the children of the different families of Ekachakra, sometimes all day and all night, And all the parents, it was their great happiness that they were all with little Nitai performing beautiful enactments of Krishna pastimes. Everyone loved him. It was traumatic. The people of Ekachakra were saying, I will find that sannyasi. I will give him my son in exchange to bring Nityananda back. In fact, I'll give him all my sons. And everybody was thinking like that. I'll give this sannyasi all my sons if he just gives Nityananda back. Let's go find him. They went running in all directions trying to find the sannyasi. But he was gone. They came back. Adai Pandit did not drink or eat anything for the next 3 months. But because he was totally immersed in feelings of separation for Nityananda, it was such a spiritual experience, he did not lose any weight. His body did not become deteriorated, but his heart. After some time, he was crying constantly, chanting Nitai Chand, Nitai Chand, Nitai, Nitai. One day, he came running to Padmavati. He said, there he is, Nitai's coming back. The sannyasi's bringing him back. Look, they're in the road. They're on their way. They're coming. They're coming. Can't you see Padmavati? Nitai is returning home. He's returning home. Then he understood there was nothing there, and he collapsed. This is the way he lived every day. And with the name of Nitai on his lips, and the remembrance of Nitai's love and his form and his heart, Adai Pandit gave up his life and went to the spiritual world. Soon after, Padmavati, in the same way, she returned to the spiritual world. And at that point, the people of Ekachakra couldn't even live in Ekachakra because seeing the places, everywhere they looked, they remembered what Nitai did in that place, and it was unbearable. So they all dispersed, and Ekachakra became like a ghost town with no one. Meanwhile, Nitai was happily on pilgrimage. They went to Gaya, they went to Kashi, they went to Mathura, Ayodhya, Dandakaranya, they went to Badrinath, Kedaranath, Gangotri, Yamunotri. They went to Dwarka. They went all the way down to Tirupati, to Srirangam, to Kanchipuram, to Kanyakumari. They went to Udupi, Pandharpur, Nasik, all the holy places. While they were in the western provinces, Nityananda Prabhu met with Madhavendra Puri. It's a beautiful narration. And Nityananda Prabhu accepted initiation from Madhavendra Puri. In Pandharpur, he met Lakshmipati Tirtha and accepted him as one of his beloved gurus in his life. And then he came back after many years. He traveled about 20 years on pilgrimage before he returned to Vrindavan. And there he lived at Sringara Bhat, where Krishna braids the hair of Srimati Radharani and puts flowers in her hair. Even today on the banks of the Yamuna, there's a tree called Nityananda Bhat, where Nityananda Prabhu resided. He decided he was going to wait for Lord Chaitanya in Vrindavan. He was like a little boy. He would roll in the dust of Vrindavan. He saw every grain of dust of Vrindavan as so sacred and so special. It's the place of his childhood as Lord Balaram. He would play with the children, the Brijabasi children. He would play in the water. He would splash in the waters of the Ganga. Just like a little boy, just waiting and waiting. And he understood from within his heart, Gauranga has returned from Gaya. He left Vrindavan, came to Navadvip, to the house of Nandanacharya. It's very close by. At the house of Nandanacharya, he was welcomed by this great devotee who recognized Nityananda. He honored him, he worshipped him, and welcomed him as a guest of his house. Nityananda Prabhu made Nandanacharya promise he would not tell anyone where he was. Meanwhile, one day, Lord Chaitanya, he said to his devotees, in 2 or 3 days, a very great personality is going to come here to Mayapur. A couple days later, he told his devotees, last night I had a dream. In this dream, a giant chariot came right in front of my door. This was not an ordinary chariot. This was a chariot that had the power to take people from this material world into the spiritual world. It had a flag with the insignia of a palm tree on it. On the chariot was a large personality. He was wearing a blue turban, a blue chadar and dhoti. He was holding a club in his hand. And in his other hand, he had a kamandalu, a water pot. He had a beautiful golden earring on one ear, wonderful flower garlands. His eyes seemed to be intoxicated in transcendental ecstasy. And he rocked back and forth and said about 10 or 20 times, "Is this the house of Nimai Pandit? Is this the house of Nimai Pandit?" He said, I could understand that this is Balaram. And I could feel in my heart that I am one with him and he is one with me. Please, Srivas, Haridas, go and find him. He's somewhere here in Navadvip. Haridas Thakur and Srivas went searching for 9 hours. They returned. They told Lord Chaitanya, we searched everywhere. We went to the houses of devotees. We went to houses of people who weren't devotees. We went to the bathing ghats. We went to the marketplaces. We went everywhere. We searched the town of Navadvip for the last 9 hours. There's no indication of such a person who has come. Lord Chaitanya smiled. He said, come, I will bring you. Lord Chaitanya walked directly to the house of Nandanacharya. Nityananda Prabhu was sitting on a veranda absorbed in Krishna. Lord Chaitanya with Srivas and Haridas and the other devotees, they came very close. And Lord Chaitanya and the others all offered their Dandavat pranams. They bowed down before Lord Nityananda. He was so beautiful, so limitless mercy and love was every limb of his body. They gazed upon him. Nityananda Prabhu gazed at Lord Chaitanya, and in his heart, his brother, his eternal brother. He was motionless, just gazing at Lord Chaitanya. Vrindavan Das Thakur says, all of his senses were completely surrendering to the beauty of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Then Lord Chaitanya told Srivas to chant a verse from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srivas chanted a beautiful verse that Sukadev Goswami speaks describing Krishna's beauty. How he has a magnificently lustrous bluish complexion. His wonderful lotus-like eyes. He has a peacock feather on his hair. He has Gunjamala, Vajayanti Mala, forest flowers. He's wearing yellow clothing. He's decorated with the flowers and the leaves and beautiful flowers draped over his ears. As he's entering into the pastures with his cows, and then he puts his flute to his lips and pours his heart's love into that flute, which makes beautiful music as all the cowherd boys are glorifying Krishna. When Nityananda Prabhu heard this, he fell unconscious. Then Lord Chaitanya told Srivas, continue. He recited other beautiful verses describing the cowherd pastimes of Krishna and Balaram. And Nityananda Prabhu got up and he exhibited such symptoms of ecstatic love. He was crying. He was rolling on the ground. His ecstasies were so much that all the devotees together were trying to hold him still, but they couldn't. He would jump up and then faint while he was high up in the air and then just fall down to the ground like a bag of bones. And all the devotees were thinking, he must have broke so many of his limbs. But then he would dance. They couldn't hold him still. Then Lord Chaitanya took him and put him on his lap, and he was motionless, completely surrendered to the will of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Lord Chaitanya he said, anyone who sees your love, Nityananda Prabhu, which is the very essence of all the scriptures and the ultimate purpose of life, anyone who sees your compassion will attain the highest perfection. And today you have made all of us fortunate by coming to be with us. Please tell me where you are coming from. Nityananda Prabhu said, I was on pilgrimage and I went to all the different holy places looking for Krishna, but I couldn't find Krishna. Every time I went to a temple, there was no one on the altar. And I went to Vrindavan, and Krishna was not there. And I was asking people, where is Krishna? And they told me, Krishna has left here to go to Godadesh, Navadvip. He's just returned from Gaya and he's now establishing the Sankirtan movement. So I have come here to serve you. The next day at Srivasa's house, they celebrated the Vyasa Puja. And there for the first time, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda Prabhu danced together. Now everyone was assembled for this glorious pastime of Navadvip Chandra Sankirtan. And tomorrow we will discuss the kirtans at the house of Srivas Thakur. Thank you. It is this love, it is this mercy, this compassion. Parama Karuna Pahundui Jananitai Gaura Chandra, that Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda came to this world to give. We are about to hear the presentation of Jananivas Prabhu and Braj Vilas Prabhu about one of the great dreams of Srila Prabhupada. Our acharyas for 500 years, Narottam Das Thakur, Srinivas Acharya, they would come to Navadvip knowing that this is the very heart of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Odarya Dham. It was the dream of the acharyas that Lord Chaitanya's mission could be so much fulfilled, and he will be so pleased when people from all over the world will come to Navadvip to associate with devotees, and in that association to open their hearts to actually experience the mercy of Navadvip Dham, the mercy of Panchatattva. Through the mercy of Panchatattva, one naturally, spontaneously enters into the eternal pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. It's the safest, most direct and perfect way of entering Vrindavan through the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. The temple of Vedic Planetarium is going to be the beautiful house for Panchatattva. Radha Madhava, Narasingha Dev, and all devotees from all over the world. I think inside the temple, something like 10,000 people can fit. So we won't even need to have pandals anymore. That means when it rains, no problem. But it's a place for devotees from all over the world to feel this is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's temple. This is a temple that will unite humanity in their mercy. But nothing great happens without sacrifice. Tomorrow we'll speak about Mahaprakash. The next day we'll speak about the first public Harinam in the procession to the house of Chandkazi. Great things always need to be purified through challenges. Challenges are opportunities. Bhakti Vinod Thakur, he prayed that the challenges and inconveniences I have in my service to you, my Lord, are my greatest happiness. So Ambarish Prabhupada asked him well over 40 years ago to help build this temple. And he's given his life, along with his wife Swaha Devi and his family. They've really given their life. He's given so many millions and millions of dollars personally to help with this temple. But Lord Chaitanya, the Panchatattva, they don't want it just to be one person's sacrifice. Everyone in the world in Prabhupada's mission could make some sacrifice. And the nature of sacrifice in bhakti, it's not you do it once and then it's done. You could keep doing it forever for Krishna's pleasure, to help Srila Prabhupada's dream to be a reality. So everyone, please, in whatever way possible, let us try to help. Thank you very much.